The stars had always watched Earth in silence. For billions of years, they burned cold and distant while life crawled from the oceans, learned to walk, learned to speak, and learned to kill. The Dominion had watched too, but only for the last 100 years. They had studied the radio signals, the satellite transmissions, and the endless broadcasts of war and chaos. They had seen enough. Commander Al stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Supremacy, and looked at the blue planet growing larger on his. His 4 eyes blinked slowly as data scrolled across his vision. 37 species had fallen to the Dominion. 37 worlds now served the greater purpose. Earth would be the 38th. "Report," he said, his voice like grinding stones. His tactical officer, a younger named or pulled up the analysis. "Primitive species. They still use chemical rockets to reach their own moon. Their weapons are projectile-based. They have no unified government. Our estimates suggest complete planetary submission within 40 solar cycles." Al made a sound of approval. This would be easy. The humans were still fighting among themselves over patches of dirt and invisible lines on maps. They would crumble the moment they saw true power. He ordered the transmission sent. It was the same message the Dominion had sent to 37 other worlds. "Surrender your planet. Accept integration into the Dominion. Resistance will result in extinction." The response came within hours. It was not what Al expected. Colonel Kate sat in the United Nations Emergency Defense Council bunker, 2 miles beneath the Swiss Alps. She was 53 years old, with gray streaks in her dark hair and lines around her eyes that spoke of decades of service. Around her sat representatives from every major nation on Earth. Russians sat beside Americans. Chinese delegates shared tables with Japanese officers. Old enemies became sudden allies. Kate read the alien ultimatum aloud. When she finished, the room was silent. "They want an answer," she said. "They want us to surrender." The Russian general, a man named, laughed bitterly. "They have studied us for years, yes. They have seen our wars, our bombs, our cruelty." "That is correct," Kate said. Shook his head. "Then they are fools. They have seen us fight each other. They think this makes us weak. They do not understand what we become when we have a common enemy." Kate nodded slowly. She picked up the microphone that would broadcast Earth's response to the alien fleet. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. "We decline," she said. Aboard the Eternal Supremacy, Al received the message. He was not angry. He was amused. Every species tried defiance once. It was almost adorable, like watching a small animal bare its teeth at a predator. He ordered a demonstration strike on a military installation the humans called Fort. What Al did not know was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. In 1947, a scout probe had crashed in the American desert. The humans had found it. They had studied it. They had learned. Admiral Jack stood on the bridge of the USS Valiant, humanity's first and only interstellar-capable warship. It was hidden on the dark side of the moon, invisible to sensors. Jack was 61 years old, a Navy man his entire life, and he had spent the last 20 years preparing for exactly this scenario. "They are targeting Fort," his sensor officer reported. "Energy weapons charging." Jack watched the ships on his display. They moved in perfect formation, beautiful and terrible. They had no idea that humanity could see them. They had no idea that humanity had built a ship that could reach them. "Hold position," Jack said. "Let them fire." The strike on Fort killed 2,000 soldiers in an instant. The base vanished in a flash of blue light. Across the world, billions of humans watched the footage. Some screamed, some cried, some prayed. But many did something else. They got angry. Within hours, recruitment centers were overwhelmed. Old soldiers came out of retirement. Factories began converting to military production. Scientists who had spent their careers competing now shared data freely. Humanity was waking up, and it was waking up furious. Kate broadcast again, this time to the entire planet. "They have struck first," she said. "They believe this will frighten us into submission. They do not know us. They do not know what we are capable of when we are united. Every nation on Earth has agreed to set aside our differences until this threat is ended. We are no longer Americans or Russians or Chinese. We are humans, and we will not surrender our world." Al watched the human broadcasts with growing confusion. The attack should have broken their spirit. Instead, they seemed more determined, more organized, more dangerous. "This is unexpected," or admitted. "Their response does not match our psychological models." Al dismissed the concern. "They are afraid. They simply hide it well. Continue the invasion plan. Land ground forces at these coordinates." He pointed to the Nevada desert. "We will crush their military installations one by one until they understand their situation." On the dark side of the moon, Admiral Jack received word that the alien landing craft were descending toward Earth. "Sir," his first officer said, "should we engage?" Jack shook his head slowly. "Not yet. Let them land. Let them think they are winning." He looked out the viewport at the distant blue Earth, his home, his world. "We have been fighting wars for 10,000 years. We have made it an art form. These aliens have conquered species that did not know how to resist." He turned to face his crew. "They are about to learn what happens when they invade a planet full of killers." Across Earth, soldiers prepared. In the Nevada desert, Master Sergeant Danny Vega checked his rifle scope for the 100th time. Beside him, Corporal Meg loaded ammunition. "You scared?" she asked. Danny smiled grimly, terrified, but that has never stopped me before. Above them, the alien landing craft descended through the clouds, carrying 10,000 shock troops. They expected quick victory. They expected the humans to flee or surrender. They had made a terrible mistake. They had studied humanity's wars, but they had not understood them. They had seen the violence, but they had not recognized what it meant. Humanity did not fight to survive. Humanity fought to win. And now, for the first time in history, every human on Earth was fighting for the same side. The invasion had begun, but it would not end the way they expected. The landing craft touched down in the Nevada desert at dawn. The sky was painted orange and pink, beautiful and peaceful. The alien soldiers emerged in perfect rows, their crystalline armor gleaming in the early light. They stood 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and 4 eyes, and they carried plasma repeaters that could turn a building into ash. Their commander, a veteran named Al, surveyed the empty landscape. Sand and rocks stretched in every direction. There were no human forces in sight, no vehicles, no aircraft, nothing but silence and wind. "They have fled," one of his officers reported. "Sensors detect no life forms within visual range." Al made a sound of contempt. "Cowards, as expected. Begin the advance toward the human military installation designated." 10,000 soldiers began marching across the desert in perfect formation. They moved as one, their steps synchronized, their weapons ready. They had conquered worlds. They had crushed civilizations. These primitive humans would be no different. 3 miles away, hidden in a rocky outcrop, Master Sergeant Danny Vega watched them through his scope. He was 42 years old, a sniper with 20 years of experience. Beside him lay Corporal Meg, her eye pressed to a spotting scope. "They are bunched up," she whispered. "No scouts, no flankers, they are just walking in a straight line." Danny nodded slowly. He had studied the intelligence reports. They had never faced an enemy that could fight back effectively. They had never needed tactics. Their technology was so superior that every battle was simply a matter of showing up and winning. "Wind speed?" Danny asked. 4 miles per hour left to right." Danny made a small adjustment to his rifle. The weapon was a M82, a 50 caliber anti-material rifle designed to destroy vehicles and equipment. The thought their crystalline armor made them invincible. Danny squeezed the trigger. The bullet traveled 3 miles in less than 4 seconds. It struck the lead officer in the center of his chest. The crystalline armor, which could withstand plasma fire and energy weapons, shattered like glass. The officer fell without a sound. By the time the crack of the rifle reached the formation, Danny had already fired twice more. 2 more aliens dropped. Al stared at his fallen soldiers in confusion. There was no enemy in sight, no weapons fire that he could see. His officers were simply falling over, their armor broken, their bodies destroyed by some invisible force. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Report." His tactical officer checked his sensors. Unknown projectile weapons, source approximately 5 kilometers distant. Al could not process this information. 5 kilometers. No species fought from 5 kilometers away. Combat happened at close range, where soldiers could see their enemies, where honor and courage mattered. Across the desert, hidden in hills and rocks and holes in the ground, 500 human snipers opened fire. They had been positioned for days, waiting silently, eating cold rations and sleeping in shifts. They were American, British, Russian, Chinese, and Israeli. Old enemies now fighting as one. They began to panic. Soldiers fell by the dozen, killed by enemies they could not see. Their plasma repeaters fired wildly at empty rocks and distant shadows. They hit nothing. Al ordered a retreat. His soldiers ran back toward the landing craft, abandoning their perfect formation. As they fled, the humans continued firing. Every shot found its target. Aboard the Eternal Supremacy, Commander Al received the reports with growing alarm. In 2 hours, he had lost 300 soldiers. The humans had suffered no casualties. This was not possible. This was not how warfare worked. "They are killing us from distances we cannot comprehend," or reported, his voice shaking. "Our armor provides no protection. Our sensors cannot locate them quickly enough." Al demanded answers. His scientists examined the recovered projectiles and found simple metal slugs propelled by chemical explosions. Primitive, brutal, devastatingly effective. "How can they be so accurate from such range?" Al asked. No one could answer. They had never developed long-range precision weapons. They had never needed to. When you could vaporize cities from orbit, why would you learn to shoot straight? On Earth, the news spread quickly. The aliens could be killed. Their armor could be broken. Their soldiers could die just like any other enemy. In the bunker beneath the Swiss Alps, Colonel Kate coordinated the global defense. Reports flooded in from every continent. Landing parties had touched down in 6 locations, and at every location, human forces were making them pay in blood. In the jungles of Vietnam, local militias used pit traps and poison darts. In the mountains of Afghanistan, fighters who had spent decades resisting invaders now turned their skills against a new enemy. In the frozen wastes of Siberia, Russian special forces ambushed alien patrols and vanished into the snow. General Ben Carter, commanding from Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado, studied the battlefield reports with grim satisfaction. "They expected us to fight like we live," he told his staff. "Divided, disorganized. They thought our wars against each other meant we were weak." He pointed at the map where red dots marked every casualty. "They did not understand. Those wars made us strong. Every generation of humanity has been forged in combat. We have spent thousands of years learning how to kill. We have made it a science." Kate nodded. "And now we have a target that deserves it." Across the world, factories worked day and night. Weapons that had been designed to fight other humans were modified to kill aliens. Scientists studied captured technology and found ways to exploit its weaknesses. Soldiers shared tactics and techniques, learning from each other across old boundaries. They had studied human history. They had seen the genocides, the world wars, the endless conflicts. They had believed this violence was a sign of weakness, a species too primitive to unite. They had made a critical error. They had seen humanity's capacity for destruction. They had not realized it was a weapon that could be pointed outward. On the second day of the invasion, they attempted a mass assault on Moscow. 20,000 soldiers descended on the city, confident that overwhelming force would prevail. They were met by 2 million armed civilians, Russian army regulars, and improvised defenses on every street corner. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the assault force no longer existed. Commander Al stared at the casualty reports in silence. He had lost 40,000 soldiers in 2 days. The humans showed no signs of surrendering. If anything, they seemed to be getting stronger. For the first time in his long career, Al felt something cold and unfamiliar crawling up his spine. He was beginning to understand that he had made a terrible mistake. 6 months had passed since the first appeared in Earth's skis. In that time, they had learned a simple truth. Conquering humanity was not going to be easy. It might not be possible at all. Commander Al stood before a holographic map of Earth, his 4 eyes tracing the red zones that marked failed operations. There were so many of them now. Every landing zone had become a nightmare. Every occupation attempt had dissolved into chaos and death. The humans did not fight like any species the Dominion had faced before. They did not form battle lines. They did not surrender when outmatched. They hid in shadows, struck without warning, and vanished before retaliation could come. In the mountains of Colorado, a farmer named Chris Blake had become a legend. His family had worked the land for 5 generations. When they came, they burned his farm to the ground. His wife died in the flames. Chris did not run. He did not surrender. Instead, he went to his barn, gathered his tools, and began building weapons. His first kill was a scout patrol. He had buried a barrel of homemade explosives beneath a road and waited for 3 days without moving. When the alien vehicle passed over the barrel, Chris pressed a button on a modified phone. The explosion threw the vehicle 50 feet into the air. Over the next 6 months, Chris Blake killed 73 using nothing but farming equipment, kitchen chemicals, and endless patience. The aliens called him the ghost of the mountains. They learned to fear the roads he had claimed. Stories like this repeated across the globe. In every country, ordinary people became extraordinary killers. Teachers built bombs. Doctors created poisons. Engineers designed traps that turned technology against itself. Aboard the Eternal Supremacy, Al received daily reports of these attacks. He could not understand them. The Dominion had conquered species with greater technology, larger populations, and better organization. None of them had fought like this. "They do not stop," Or said, exhaustion in his voice. "We destroy a city and they attack from the ruins. We kill 1,000 of them and 10,000 more appear. It is as if death means nothing to them." Al had no response. He had studied human psychology, but the books had not prepared him for this. The humans were supposed to be afraid. They were supposed to value their lives. Instead, they seemed willing to die in numbers that would terrify any rational species. In orbit around Earth, Lieutenant Commander Martinez led the fighter squadron of the USS Valiant against a supply convoy. Her ship was smaller and slower than the alien craft, but it was built by humans who had spent a century mastering aerial combat. "Break formation on my mark," ordered her pilots. "Hit them from multiple angles. Do not give them a single target to focus on." They flew in perfect patterns, their ships moving as one. It was beautiful to watch, a dance of technology and coordination. It was also predictable. Had watched hours of footage from previous engagements. She had noticed something important. The aliens never improvised. They followed their training exactly, responding to each situation with predetermined maneuvers. If you knew what they were going to do, you could be somewhere else when they did it. Her squadron scattered like startled birds, each pilot choosing their own path through the enemy formation. They tried to respond, but they could not track so many individual targets. Their coordinated fire missed. Human missiles did not. destroyed 3 enemy ships in the first pass. By the time the engagement ended, the convoy was debris, and her squadron had suffered no losses. "They fly like machines," she reported to Admiral afterward. "Perfect and predictable. They have never fought anyone who could actually challenge them. They have no concept of individual initiative." Back on Earth, Doctor made a discovery that would change everything. She was working in a secret facility beneath the Nevada desert, studying captured soldiers both living and dead. "They share a neural network," she announced to the Joint Command. "Every is connected to every other through a biological communication system. They think together. They react together. When one of them experiences something, they all experience it." General Ben Carter leaned forward. "What does this mean for combat?" Pulled up a brain scan on the display. "It means they have no individual decision-making. Every action requires consensus. When something unexpected happens, they all freeze for a moment while the network processes the new information." Kate understood immediately. "That is why they cannot handle our guerrilla tactics. Every surprise attack creates confusion across their entire force." Nodded. "There is more. Their network is also their weakness. If we can disrupt it even temporarily, they become helpless, like ants when you destroy their chemical trails." Human scientists went to work immediately. Within weeks, they had developed a device that could broadcast interference on neural frequencies. The first test was conducted during a minor engagement in the Pacific. The results were devastating. When the interference hit, the soldiers simply stopped. They stood frozen, their weapons silent, their eyes empty. Human Marines walked among them and ended the battle without resistance. Nick Graves was a Navy SEAL with 15 years of experience. He had fought in wars across the world, against enemies who used every dirty trick in the book. They were his favorite targets. His team was the first to board an enemy ship in space. They used a captured shuttle, docked with a supply vessel, and entered through an airlock. The aliens inside were not expecting visitors. Nick killed 11 with his combat knife before they understood what was happening. By the time they activated their weapons, his team had already secured the engine room. They took the ship intact. Commander Al received the news with something close to despair. The humans had captured a ship. They had learned nothing about war from being conquered because they had never been conquered. They were adapting faster than any species in recorded history. He requested reinforcements from the Dominion. For the first time in 10,000 years, a conquest force had failed to subdue a primitive civilization. The Dominion High Council received his message with confusion and anger. How could a species that had not even reached its neighboring planets be winning against the greatest military force in the galaxy? They sent a fleet of 500 warships, the largest armada assembled in 3 centuries. It would arrive in Earth's system within 8 months. Al waited for the reinforcements with growing dread. He had seen what the humans could do with primitive technology and desperate courage. By the time the fleet arrived, what would they have learned? What new horrors would they have created? He looked at the blue planet on his and realized something that chilled him to his core. The humans were not defending their world. They were studying his forces, learning, adapting, preparing for something much larger than simple survival. The reinforcement fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. 500 warships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. They moved in perfect formation, a wall of metal and fire that had destroyed civilizations. Admiral or commanded the fleet from his flagship, the Divine Judgment. He had received detailed reports about the failures of the original invasion force. He understood that the humans were more dangerous than expected. He did not believe they could stand against true power. "Analysis of enemy forces," he commanded. His officers compiled the data. The humans had built more ships in the 8 months since the invasion began. They now had 12 capital ships and approximately 200 smaller craft. Against 500 warships, it was barely worth counting. "They cannot win," Orr said with certainty. "They may have surprised Commander Al, but they cannot fight a fleet action, proceed to Earth and end this embarrassment." The fleet began its journey inward, passing Neptune and Uranus without pause. They expected no resistance until they reached Earth. They were wrong. Captain Amy Tran stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, humanity's first true battlecruiser. It had been built in 6 months using everything humans had learned from captured technology. Its shields were based on alien designs. Its weapons were something new entirely. Amy was 41 years old, the daughter of Vietnamese refugees who had fled war to find peace in America. She had grown up hearing stories of resistance against impossible odds. Now she would write her own story. "They are entering the asteroid belt," her sensor officer reported. Amy nodded. She had positioned her fleet among the rocks and debris that floated between Mars and Jupiter. They would have to come through, and they would not find it easy. "All ships hold position," she ordered. "Do not fire until my command." Her tactical officer was a former Russian submarine commander named. He had spent 30 years hiding beneath the ocean, waiting for enemies who never came. Now he was hiding in space, waiting for enemies who definitely would. "They are not scanning carefully," noted. "They expect us to be at Earth. They think this is empty space." Amy smiled grimly. "Let them think that." The fleet entered the asteroid belt in their perfect formation. The rocks posed no threat to their shields. They passed asteroid after asteroid, paying them no attention. They did not notice the weapons platforms hidden on those asteroids. They did not notice the mines floating in the darkness between rocks. They did not notice 12 human ships drifting with engines cold, invisible against the background of space. Amy waited until the fleet was deep in the belt, surrounded by rocks on all sides. Then she gave the order. "Fire everything." The asteroid belt came alive with light and death. Nuclear missiles emerged from hidden platforms. Kinetic projectiles accelerated to impossible speeds. Mines detonated against hulls. And from the darkness, 12 human ships opened fire with weapons that should not have existed. Admiral Orr stared at his displays in shock. Ships were dying around him. The carefully arranged formation was dissolving into chaos. Asteroids that he had ignored were spitting fire at his fleet. "It is an ambush," he realized. "The humans set a trap." But understanding the trap did not help him escape it. His ships tried to turn, tried to fight back, but the humans were everywhere and nowhere. They fired from behind rocks and then moved before return fire could find them. They targeted engines and weapons, crippling ships instead of destroying them, creating obstacles for the vessels behind. Captain Amy Tran had studied every military genius in human history. She had read Sun, who taught that warfare was deception. She had read Napoleon, who understood the value of surprise. She had read, who knew that speed and aggression could overcome superior numbers. She was using all of it now. "They are trying to concentrate their fire," reported. "They want to focus on our flagship." "Then we give them a target," Amy said. She ordered the Defiance to accelerate directly toward the formation, drawing their attention. While they focused on her, the rest of the human fleet circled behind them. The second battle of the asteroid belt lasted 9 hours. By the end, the fleet had lost 212 ships. Humanity had lost 3. Admiral Orr survived, his flagship badly damaged, his fleet in disarray. He ordered a retreat to the outer solar system to regroup. The humans let them go. "Why are we not pursuing?" one of Amy's officers asked. "Because we want them scared," Amy replied. "We want them to report back to what happened here. We want every in the galaxy to know that humanity defeated their armada." At Earth, the news of the victory spread like wildfire. People danced in the streets. They had been living under the shadow of invasion for over a year, and now they could see hope. Commander Al received the reports from the retreating fleet with a mixture of horror and something that might have been respect. The humans had done the impossible. They had defeated our armada in open battle. He understood now what he was facing. This was not a primitive species fighting desperately for survival. This was a species of warriors, refined by 10,000 years of killing each other, now united against a common enemy. Admiral Orr eventually regrouped his surviving ships near Neptune. He had fewer than 300 vessels remaining. Many were damaged. Morale was shattered. He sent a message to the Dominion requesting further reinforcements. The response took 3 days. There would be no reinforcements. The Dominion High Council had studied the battle reports. They had calculated the cost of subduing Earth. The numbers were unacceptable. Humanity had proven that they could fight. More importantly, they had proven that they could win. Admiral Orr received new orders. He was to maintain position and await diplomatic contact. The Dominion was ready to negotiate. On Earth, Admiral Jack stood beside Colonel Kate as they received the news. The alien fleet had stopped advancing. They wanted to talk. "We won," Kate said, her voice barely a whisper. "We actually won." Jack shook his head slowly. "Not yet. We survived. We proved we could fight, but this is not over." He looked at the display showing the fleet, still lurking at the edge of the solar system. "Now comes the hard part. Now we have to make sure they never come back." He turned to face the command center, filled with officers from every nation on Earth. "Begin construction of the next generation fleet. We have bought ourselves time. Let us use it wisely." Outside, the sun rose over a world that had changed forever. Humanity had looked into the darkness of space and found an enemy that wanted to destroy them. They had fought back with everything they had. And they had won. But Captain Amy Tran understood something important as she watched her crew celebrate. This was just the beginning. The galaxy was full of empires and threats. Earth could never be truly safe until humanity could meet those threats on equal terms. She began planning the next battle before the celebrations had even ended. The diplomatic station floated in the empty space between Earth and Mars. It had been built in 2 weeks, a neutral ground where the fate of 2 civilizations would be decided. The Dominion had never negotiated with a species they had tried to conquer. They had never needed to. Admiral Jack led the human delegation. Beside him walked Colonel Kate and representatives from every nation on Earth. They wore their dress uniforms, cleaned and pressed, but everyone could see the exhaustion in their faces. 18 months of total war had left its mark. The delegation was led by High Arbiter Al, the most senior diplomat in the Dominion. He towered over the humans, his crystalline robes catching the light. Behind him stood Commander Al, who had led the original invasion. His eyes would not meet the humans' gaze. The 2 groups faced each other across a curved table made from neither human nor materials. For a long moment, no one spoke. Al broke the silence. His voice was like a mountain shifting. "We do not understand you." Kate raised an eyebrow. "Please explain what you mean." The High Arbiter gestured with 2 of his 4 hands, a movement of confusion and frustration. "Your species should not exist. You are small and fragile. Your lives are brief. Your planet is divided into hundreds of competing groups. By every measure our scientists use, you should have fallen within days of our arrival." He turned to look at Al, who seemed to shrink under the attention. "We sent our finest warriors. They were humiliated. We sent our greatest fleet. It was broken. We have studied your history, your wars, your endless violence against yourselves." Al leaned forward, his 4 eyes fixed on Kate. "Why, how, what are you?" Kate smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who had watched friends die and cities burn and who had survived anyway. "You studied us for 100 years," she said. "You watched our broadcasts. You analyzed our wars. You saw the genocides, the world wars, the nuclear weapons, and you thought this meant we were weak. She stood up and walked to the viewport that looked out on distant Earth, a blue marble hanging in the darkness. That violence is not our weakness, Kate continued. It is our inheritance. Every generation of humanity has been forged in war. We have spent 10,000 years learning how to kill each other. We have made it a science. We have made it an art. We have weapons designed to destroy cities and tactics designed to win against impossible odds. She turned back to face the. You have conquered species that did not know how to fight, species that had never needed to develop the art of war. They surrendered because they did not understand resistance. Her voice hardened. We are different. We have been fighting since before we could write. We have created philosophies of warfare. We have produced geniuses whose only purpose was to kill more efficiently. When you invaded our world, you did not face a primitive species. You faced the most experienced killers in the galaxy. High Arbiter Al was silent for a long moment. Then he made a sound that might have been laughter or might have been despair. We came to conquer you, he said. Instead, you have taught us fear. The negotiations lasted 3 days. In the end, the Dominion agreed to withdraw completely from human space. They would establish a buffer zone of 3 star systems, territory that neither species would enter without permission. They would share certain technologies as payment for the damage they had caused. Most importantly, they would broadcast a warning to every civilization in the galaxy. Commander Al was given the task of composing that warning. He had spent 18 months learning what humanity was capable of. He chose his words carefully. The message went out on every frequency, transmitted to every corner of known space. It said, "Here there be humans. They are a small species from a small world at the edge of the galaxy. They fight among themselves constantly. They hold grudges for generations. They remember every wrong ever done to them. Do not threaten what they love. Do not invade their territory. Do not mistake their chaos for weakness." We sent our warriors against them. Our warriors did not return. We sent our fleet against them. Our fleet was broken. They are not conquerors. They do not seek empire, but they will destroy anyone who threatens their home. They are the apex predators of their world. Now they have starships. Leave them alone. Years passed. Humanity rebuilt its cities and its societies. The old divisions remained, but they were softer now. When you have fought together against extinction, old hatreds seem less important. The USS Defiance became the flagship of Earth's new defense fleet. Captain Amy Tran was promoted to admiral. She spent her remaining years building a military that could protect humanity from any threat the galaxy might offer. Master Sergeant Danny Vega retired to a small cabin in the mountains of Colorado. He had nightmares sometimes, memories of the aliens he had killed from 3 miles away. But he also had peace, knowing that his world was safe. Doctor continued her research into alien biology. Her discoveries about the neural network led to breakthroughs in human medicine and communication. She won prizes and honors, but she always said her greatest achievement was helping humanity survive. Admiral Jack died 15 years after the war ended, surrounded by his family. His last words were about the stars, about how beautiful they looked, about how much he hoped humanity would find friends out there someday instead of enemies. Colonel Kate became the first Secretary General of the United Earth Defense Council. She spent 20 years building the institutions that would protect humanity for generations to come. When she finally retired, she wrote a book about the invasion. The last chapter was titled, "What We Learned." In it she wrote, "They saw our violence and thought it made us weak. They did not understand. Our violence is not a flaw. It is a tool. We have used it against ourselves for 10,000 years, and we have become very, very good at it. We did not survive because we were lucky. We survived because we were prepared. Because every war in our history taught us something about how to fight. because we turned our greatest weakness into our greatest strength. The galaxy knows us now. They have heard the warnings. They know what we are capable of when we are threatened. And they are afraid. 50 years after the invasion, a young girl sat on her grandfather's knee in a small home in Montana. Outside, the stars glittered in the cold night sky. "Grandpa," she asked, "why do the aliens stay away from Earth?" The old man smiled. His name was Danny Vega, and he had been a hero once, though he never spoke of it. He looked up at the stars and remembered a morning in the Nevada desert when the future of humanity had balanced on the edge of his rifle. "Because a long time ago," he said, "we showed them what we are made of. We showed them that we do not give up, we do not surrender, and we do not lose when our home is at stake." The girl looked up at the stars with wonder. "Are they still scared of us?" Danny nodded slowly. "Yes, sweetheart, they are still scared of us, and as long as they are scared, they will leave us alone." She was quiet for a moment thinking, then she smiled. "Good," she said. Danny laughed and hugged her close. Above them, the stars burned on in silence, watching a species that had proven itself worthy of the darkness, a species that had turned 10,000 years of bloodshed into survival. Humanity had looked into the void and found monsters. And the monsters had learned to look away.